Welcome to the sixth lecture of Linguistics 2 English 504. Now let's look at what we did in the last class, and that was the fifth lecture of the course. We talked about sociolinguistics, that it's a study of speech functions according to the speaker, the hearer, their relationship, the contact and the context and the situation. So the use of language, the change of language according to the different social situations. And it is the study of causes and the consequences of linguistic behavior in human societies. What are the causes of the changes? What are the results of this linguistic behavior, the change in linguistic behavior in different human societies? And we also saw that the social linguistics is concerned with the functions of the language, the functions of the language in different classes of society, in different contexts, in different professions, how language changes in different social situations, in different economic classes, in different professions in the society, and what is the role of the language, and how man or a person changes language, changes the variety, changes vocabulary, changes the pronunciation, according to the situations. So now, what's basically today in this lecture, we'll be talking about the language variation, the different varieties or different terms in the process of language variation. And we see that language varies not only from individual to another, but also from one subsection of speech community to another subsection. It changes from family to family, it changes from village to village, town to town, region to region. As we move in different families, sometimes in the same society, as we move from different villages, we see some of the words are different, some of the ways to utter certain sentences is different, some of the pronunciation, we see a change in pronunciation, we also see change in the dialects as we move across the villages or towns or geographical regions. And then we see that people of different age, sex, social class, occupation or cultural groups in the same community will show variation in speech. Now this can be related with the vocabulary that we see being used by our elders and the vocabulary being used by us. So as we see that the vocabulary or the language can change as even in the same class, even in the same section of the society, according to the age, according to the sex, like the gender. The different genders, they have different variety, different vocabulary or different variety of language, different social classes, different occupations and cultural groups in the same community. They will show the language variation. Thus language varies in geographical and social space. Now variability in social dimension, sociolactical, that is the term used when we talk about the variability or the change in the social dimension. When we see changes in the social dimensions, social sections of the society, we have a term that is sociolactical. Sociolinguistics say language is a code. Now that is where the codes, different codes are developed when we see that the language or we see the different varieties of language, then the different varieties have their different codes. Varieties exist within a code. In that very code, language is overall a unified code. In that very code, you have different varieties of language. Now let's look at the factors basically which cause language variation. Nature of participants, their relationship, socioeconomic, sexual, occupational, all these factors basically are responsible for language changes. Sometimes number of participants, like face-to-face conversation, or we also call it dyadic communication, like two people talking to each other or one person addressing a large gathering. This is also a factor, one of the factors that may result in the language variation. Roles of participants. Again, the roles of participants like teacher, student, priest, father, son, husband, wife, they have different varieties of different kinds of languages, different kinds of words, or the way to utter words, or maybe sometimes the underlying meanings are different, the context, according to the context. So these people, they have different varieties of language, they use different varieties of language in different social situations or in different roles, as a teacher, as a student, as a priest, father or son. Functions of speech event like persuasion, request for information, rituals, verbal. Now again here there are different contexts as well. When you are persuading somebody, you are using different kind of vocabulary. When you are requesting for information, you are using a different kind of vocabulary. When you are talking according to the ritual, performing different rituals, you are using different kinds of vocabulary. Or when you are in verbal, when you are writing something, when you are speaking something, of course you add to the words. When you are speaking the same thing, when you are speaking in the same content, when you are speaking, you add some more words to it. So all these things like persuasion, request for information, granting permission, asking for permission, giving orders, or maybe taking the instructions, all these, they have different variety of different words being used. So it depends on the context as well. When we talk about the genre of discourse and nature of medium, like the speech, like writing, like scripted speech, like the speech reinforced by gestures. So again, when you are in the situation of making a speech, when you're writing, when you are using scripted speech, or the speech is reinforced by gestures, like you have also non-verbal language mixed in speech, you use different kind of words. Genre of discourse like scientific, experiments, sport, art, religion, again you have different genre of discourse. Like the scientific texts, like the experiments, like the sports texts, like the art, like religion, again you have different vocabulary or different variety. Going on to physical setting, if it's a noisy setting, it's a quiet place, it's a public gathering, it's a private sitting, family gathering or a formal gathering, or when you're in a familiar situation, or when you are in an unfamiliar situation, appropriate for speech, a situation which is appropriate for speech, or inappropriate for speech, like you are in a sitting room, or maybe you are in a different situation where which is not really appropriate for you to make a speech or to speak. So all these things, they would affect the kind of vocabulary you are using, the kind of language you're using, because you definitely have a change, you have different words, you have different words, you have different sentences, you have different sometimes tones. Even the change of tones occurs sometimes when you are in a different environment. A regional or geographical setting, again the regional and geographical setting, as we said earlier, also affects the language. Now let's talk about, we mentioned the word code. Now what is a code basically? A code is an arbitrary pre-arranged set of signals. As Gleason says, it is an arbitrary system. It's a pre-arranged set of signals, and that of course determines the kind of language being used. A language is not one special variety of code. It is not a code. The codes of course again change according to the different varieties. The total organization of different linguistic components in a language, that is the code of that language. Organization of components, linguistic components, when they are organized and they are given an order and they are used as rule, they are basically called as the code of that language. Every language again has codes, and these codes are different. The arrangement of the linguistic components are different in that language. Code is abstract system accepted by arbitrarily in the community. It's abstract system and it is accepted by the community which uses it. A language establishes its identity only when the members of that very community who use that, they accept the code and they use the language according to that code. They have to control, they have to make the use of words, they may have to make the use of that language according to the code, and that code is accepted by everybody. Only then you can say it's a language. Now, what is dialect and social act? We talked about it briefly in our 5th lecture. Let's talk about it a little more. Like, a dialect is a regional, temporal or social variety within the single language. In one very language, you have a regional, temporal, social variety. That variety is called a dialect. It differs in pronunciation, grammar and vocabulary from the standard language, which is socially favored dialect. Now, you have a standard language, and then again in that you have when you move from across the regions or across the classes, you have different you have a change in pronunciation, you have a change in grammar, you have a change in vocabulary. Now that is basically code, and that is a different variety from the standard code. It has a different pronunciation, the words are pronounced in different way. Sometimes there is a syntactic difference, there is a difference in the arrangement of words, and you have a different kind of vocabulary sometimes for the same words. You have so many words which are understood in one region and will not be understood in another region for the very same things. You have different words being spoken in different regions, and of course they are different from the standard code or from the standard language, which is a socially favored dialect. And that is what when you say that it's a different dialect and this is a dialect of a particular region or a particular class. It is sufficiently different to be considered a separate entity, but not different enough to be classed as a separate language. Now, codes are not languages. Codes, dialects are not languages. Dialects are basically, they are different, they are sufficiently different to be considered a separate entity. They may enjoy a separate entity, a separate identity, but they are not that different that you can term them as language. So a code is different from a language. It cannot be classed as a separate language. It has its identity as a particular variety. It has its identity to be classed in a separate, as a separate entity, but it's not that different. It's the rules and the variety is not doesn't enjoy that status which can be given to a language. Sometimes it's difficult to differentiate because of political boundaries. Now, as we said, the dialects change when we move across the boundaries. As we move, this means that as we move to a different boundary or different area, geographical region or class, the dialect changes, the variety changes. But sometimes it's difficult to clearly demarcate, to clearly differentiate one dialect from another dialect because of the political boundaries. The boundary is blurred because of the movement of people across the boundaries, because of their residence at such a place where they are exposed to the two different varieties of language, and their language it's difficult to distinguish that which dialect is being used by those people. So it's difficult to differentiate clearly the dialects. The dialects may not enjoy a clear demarcation because of the movement, because physical movement of people across the boundaries sometimes, and interaction with people of different cultures or different regions or different classes. So one example is the Dutch and some Low German dialects. That is again a combination. You may say it becomes a combination, and it's difficult to differentiate the two different dialects being spoken by the people living in these regions. There is a regional dialect or local geographical and territorial dialects. They are spoken by people of a particular geographical area within the speech community. Like you have the Cockney School in London, the Cockney class, which is the language being spoken by the people who belong to working class, and they are considered to be less educated people. In London, this is going in, and now they are receding because of education. People are getting more education. Even the working class is getting high education, and after getting education, of course, that particular variety of language is receding. You may not find many people from the Cockney class using the same language as it was being used in the past by the less educated people, because they are getting education and also they are moving in higher classes gradually. So because of movement and because of their enhancement in their education, they are now using a different variety, and they are using an improved variety of language. So it's really difficult now. Even in the Cockney class, it's sometimes different to clearly distinguish whether the people they belong to Cockney class or they have moved to a higher class because of their education. Again, we have some more words for dialect. What is a dialect? Basically, the definition coming from a dictionary of linguistics. Dialect is a specific form of a given language spoken in a certain locality or geographical area, showing sufficient differences from the standard of literary form of that language. As we said, that they are different from the standard form. As moving on, as to pronunciation, the pronunciation might be different, grammatical structure might be different, grammatical construction or structure, and idiomatic use of words. Some words are used idiomatically. They may have different, they will have a different use from their use in the standard English, to be considered a distinct entity. They have a distinct entity because of the differences, yet not sufficient distinct, not as distinct, not as different from other dialects of the language to be regarded as a different language. So they cannot be called a language. They are not that different from the other language as to enjoy the status of an independent language, as to enjoy the status of a special language. They are just the varieties. They have their identity, they have their quality, they have their characteristics, their features, but they are not that distinguishable from the other dialects so as to call them up a specific language or a different language. Now, another word which comes into picture is sociolects. Social dialects or class dialects. We talked about it in the last lecture. Now, this is spoken by the members of a particular group or stratum of a speech community. One particular strata might have a different variety or different words or a way to pronounce the words. They are called again the sociolects or the social dialects or the class dialects. Different classes of the society, the low class, the middle class, high class, may have different variety or may have different kinds of words or the kinds of pronunciation. Now, these are called the sociolects. We talked about it in the last class as well. Now, isogloss is the next term which needs attention. An isogloss is a line indicating the degree of linguistic change. That is basically the boundary, the line where the linguistic, you may find the linguistic change. Variety changes, variety of language changes. That boundary, that demarcation is called isogloss. Isogloss is a representation of statistical probabilities, a graphic way of portraying a translation of speech characteristics of one area to another. A bundle of isoglosses may be interpreted as marking a zone of great translation of speech. So this means that the boundary or the change, the boundary which shows the change is the isogloss. It basically indicates how a language has changed, or how a variety, not a language, a variety has changed from one to the other. It also you can say it indicates a dialect boundary. In easy words we can say that indicates a dialect boundary, a line, a demarcation line. Now this term is also modeled on geographical terms like isotherm, a line joining areas of equal temperature, or isobar, a line joining areas of equal atmospheric pressure. It is in contrast to isograph. Now isograph is another term, but this isogloss is in contrast to the term isograph. Now what is isograph? It is any line on a linguistic map indicating a uniformity in the use of sounds, vocabulary, syntax and inflection. So when you have a line which indicates that the same words in this very area, the same words are being used, the same sounds are being used, the same vocabulary is being used, there's same syntax, inflection, all these are same. Now that line is basically called isograph. That is a line in a linguistic map. But iso basically term is an isogloss is a different word which is basically the demarcation between the two different varieties of language. So you can understand it when you relate it with isograph. Isograph is a line which shows the same variety, whereas isogloss is a term which is a line between the two different varieties of language. The next word is register. Well, a very familiar word which we saw in the last lecture as well. Registers are varieties of language according to their use in different human activities, different aspects of human activity or different professions. It's a stylistic functional varieties of a dialect or language. Registers may be termed as stylistic functional varieties. Different varieties that have different function, that play different function in one dialect or one language. You may have you may have different varieties being used in different professions or different areas of human activity. Narrowly defined by reference to subject matter, like you have field of discourse, jargon of fishing, sports, to medium like mode of discourse, printed material, written, letters, message on tape, or going on to the level of formality like style or the manner of discourse. So in different levels, at different levels you have registers. You have the kinds of documents, you have the kinds of you have different forms of documents which may show us the registers, like in the you have jargons at the subject narrow at the narrow level. Moving on to medium level, we have mode of discourse, how the discourses are written, and then you have the printed material like written letters, how the written letters are produced in different professions, and how the messages are recorded on tape in different professions, or what is the style of the language in different professions. So registers again mean that the varieties of language in different professions according to their use in different professions. We have some of the definitions. If we look at the definitions, the concept becomes really clear. By register we mean a variety correlated with the performer's social role on a given occasion. How a performer uses language in on different occasions. Every normal adult plays a series of different social roles. Like one man, for example, may function at different times as a head of a family, motorist, cricketer, member of a religious group, professor, and so on. One person has different roles living in a society. Can be in the family, can be in the can be in the different social situations. He may be a leader of a religious group. He may be a professor of chemistry. He's also a head of a family. He can be a motorist. He can be a cricketer. So all these different roles, he has to use different kinds of languages, different varieties of language. Within his ideolect, he has varieties shared by other persons and other ideolects appropriate to these roles. Now, a person not only uses different variety, different words or different syntaxes, different forms of different ways of uttering sentences, not only himself, but he uses it according to the people in different situations. He has a different language at home. He has a different language in school. He has a different language in the office. He has a different language with interacting with people of different classes. So it's basically not only with with a speaker, but also with a hearer. The speaker has to adapt to the situation and use language accordingly. By register, we mean a variety correlated with the performer's social role in a given situation, right? So this is what we were talking about, that he is has a different kinds of uses different words or different sentences in different situations, different roles. Now we have an example here that when the professor's wife tells him to stop talking like a professor, basically she is protesting at the misuse of register. Now, a professor has a particular way to talk in a university, has a particular words, has special words which the professor uses at the university. Now, at home has a different role of a husband. So when a wife says stop talking like a professor, she doesn't like his role, his same role or his same language which is used at the university, and basically she is protesting at the misuse of register. The wife thinks that the person is using the register which is associated with his role in the office, is misusing the same register at home. He's using it. So she doesn't like his register which should be used at the office, not at home. Registers are those, look at the next definition, registers are those varieties of language which correspond to different situations, different speakers and listeners, or readers and writers, and so on. Now, this is a definition given by R.M.W. Dixon, and he says that they are varieties of language which correspond to which are related with different situations, which are related with different speakers and listeners, or readers and writers. So, the writers, when they are writing, of course they have the readers in their mind, and they adapt their writing, they design their writing according to the readers. That is how there is a relationship. There develops a relationship between the writers and the reading and the readers, and the writing is clearly understood by the readers. So and it will enjoy enjoy to be called as a good reading. So registers are related with the not only with their use by the speakers, but also also related with their understanding by the listeners. Now, talking about the role of speaker, a young lecturer, for example, will speak different ways when communicating with his wife, his children, his father, his colleagues, his students, when shopping, and so on. This is again the same relationship that a speaker enjoys. A speaker has different roles in different situations, and with different people he has different relationship. So he uses the language accordingly. Each of these varieties will be register. The next term is the ideolect. Now, what is an ideolect? It's a variety of language used by one individual speaker, including peculiarities of pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary. Now, one individual speaker may have a typical language. Even sometimes language varies with people. Even within one class, different people have a different peculiar vocabulary. That is called idiolect. It is related with his way of thinking. It is related with his relationship with the people. So a person develops a kind of language or a kind of variety. Now that very variety of language which is related with one individual speaker is called idiolect. It may have its own, a person may have his own way of pronouncing words, he may have his own vocabulary, he may have his own he may have his own grammar, he or she may have his own her vocabulary. So that particular language, that particular variety related with one person is called idiolect. And a dialect is basically made of idiolects of a group of speakers in a social or regional subdivisions of a speech community. Dialect is basically combination. It's a group. It's a combination, collection of idiolects of a group of speakers. You have a group of speakers in one particular class which has a group of speakers which has one particular kind of variety. So when you collect all those varieties of language, you form it becomes a dialect. So what is a dialect? It's made up of the idiolects of a group of speakers in a social or regional subdivision of a speech. In one very speech community, you have different idiolects, the varieties of language spoken by groups of people, right? And when they are combined, you form a dialect. Idiolect is, again, we have another definition, is an identifiable pattern of speech characteristic of an individual. Or idiolect is the individual's personal variety of the community language system. Now this is a personal variety, the personal variety of a could be of a person, individual, or group of individuals. And when they are clearly identifiable, they use some words, some different words, different pronunciation, which are not being used by the other individuals or by the other groups of individuals. So they are clearly identifiable. You can identify that particular variety or those particular words or pronunciation where you think that yes, this is a different class and it is a different kind of language that is being used. So that is develops, and again you start you can distinguish those sounds, and of course it becomes a separate variety or a different variety or associated with that particular person or with that particular group of people. So when you combine that, it becomes a dialect. Now the next term is diglosia. When two or more dialects or languages they are in regular use in one very class or area, the situation is called diglosia, and here one dialect or language is given higher status or given more prestige or more importance, and that is reserved for certain functions in the society. It plays certain functions in the society, like in the government circles you have a particular kind of language, a particular variety of language. Education, you reserve a particular a different variety of language. Law, you reserve a different variety of language. Religion, you reserve a different kind of variety to be used in religion. In literature, press, radio and TV, all these you reserve certain varieties of language in these very professions or in these very areas. So when two different languages are being used in one society or one class of society, one language is thought to be more is considered to be more prestigious or considered to be more important, and then again you reserve that language for a certain profession. Like the language being used in the government circles again is different from the language used by common man or in the educational institutions. So some languages, they are reserved for educational institutions, or some languages they are reserved by law. Now the language which is used in the books of law, that is entirely different from the everyday correspondence language being used in the offices. And it's sometimes very difficult to understand that language. Only the person from that very profession can understand that language. And sometimes you also associate some of the words with those professions, that these words can only be used in these, are only being, it becomes a convention, it becomes a system that some words are associated with those professions and they are not used in the other professions. And even if they are used, they are considered misfit, and maybe the words are replaced. Like religion, no, some words, they have a particular kind of impression. They give us an impression that they are related with these professions. Like the connotations. These words, they have a specific connotation, which gives us an impression that the words belongs to a particular profession or particular area. So it is here that the languages are fixed for the professions. The languages are fixed for certain functions, to play different functions in the society, and that is where you have different varieties of language related with law, related with education, government, religion, literature, press, radio and TV. Now here again, in radio and TV, again you have some words which are being used in radio and which are being used in TV. They are not used in our everyday life. Of course, gradually the press people are trying to use those words, trying to use the words which are understood by common people. But again, here we can say that different newspapers, the newspapers also have different kind of language. Some newspapers which are enjoyed by the one section of society, they are not enjoyed by other sections of society. Some newspapers have different language which is read by very well educated people. Like we have examples of Dawn. Now Dawn newspaper is not really used much at the lower circle of society, or the low educated people, or the normal educated people. In the normal homes we see newspapers like you have News, like you have Dunya. So these newspapers, they target the people who belong to the normal class of society. But then again, you have Dawn, which again goes to specific people. So here we see that languages, even inside professions, they are fixed depending on the users of those languages, depending on the readers of those languages. So some languages, when you have two or more languages in the same society, the languages are graded. Some languages are given more importance, more prestige, and they are again reserved for particular professions or particular areas of society. The prestige dialect, often called the standard dialect. Now often it's when you give prestige to a dialect, the prestige to a language, then that is called a language. So the dialect which enjoys the maximum prestige or the maximum importance and is reserved for the very higher circles of society, it can be called a language as a first language. And then you have the other languages which have maybe the less importance, can be left as the second languages, or the dialects being used in other sections of the society. But the highest prestige that goes to a dialect, which is often called a language. Then moving on, we have pidgin. Now what is a pidgin? Now a pidgin is the contract language, a mixture of elements from different natural languages. You can call it a trade or trade language, or restricted to certain groups like traders and seamen. Now traders, they have their own particular register, they have their own particular variety or the kind of language that they used. It's a contract language, and it may be a mixture of the elements from different natural languages. It may take words from different languages. Like you have a Chinese pidgin, for example, for a limited purpose of trade. It's a combination of English and Chinese language. So the traders, it has its restricted use for the purpose of trade between the English and the Chinese. So it's very it's used in some parts of Asia. You have this pidgin, which is called the language of trade, or we have another word for it. So we can also call pidgin as the contact vernacular, the language or the variety of language being used for trade purposes. It has a very limited circle, it has a very limited use, just being used to contact, for its use for contact purpose, and just being used for trade. So a variety of language or vocabulary or pronunciation or the syntax that is associated with trade, to develop trade between two maybe countries or two different regions, can be called a pidgin. Now then we have, sometimes what happens, a pidgin attains such an importance that it becomes a lingua franca. It extends. More people start using it. When, for example, when the trade expands, the trade expands and more people come into to contact with each other, that language, the pidgin, extends its boundaries. The pidgin is now used by more people. Then it is called Creole, which we have which we have as number 8, Creole. Now what is a Creole? When pidgin becomes lingua franca and pidgin extends beyond the limited functions, and it also enters other activities of human life. It is not only then again related only with the trade, it also enters other activities. It's also used by more people from other activities, and more people involved in other activities. And then it is then that it has a standardized grammar. Then some particular rules, they start originating, and a particular grammar comes into origin, a particular set of different words that comes into origin, and a sound system as well. So the tones, then a tone is associated with that kind of variety of language. It has standardized grammar, it has some vocabulary, it has sound, like sound system, the way to utter certain sentences. That is where it attains the status of a Creole. It is not a pidgin, it is now spoken by increasing number of people as the first language. People, they forget, they now use it, they now use it as their first language. So Creole is a mix of natural language composed of elements of different languages in areas of intensive contact. So now the areas, more activities of human life, they come into contact, more people come into contact, and they start using that pidgin, or they start using the trade language. And since the pidgin has extended and moved into different activities, so that is where some special rules and some special grammar or vocabulary is again fixed and associated with that very pidgin, and now it's called a Creole. It's a mixed examples. You have Creoles of islands of Mauritius and Haiti. No, they have, because they are very famous for and there was a lot of trade in those areas, so many people, they came into contact for the purposes of trade, for the purposes of business, and there was the different particular language, variety of language developed, a particular variety of language came into origin, and that is then the people gradually started using, more people started using it, and it extended the boundaries, and that's where the rules were set. Now, coming on to the varieties of language which we studied today, we said that summing up this today's lecture, we say that language is basically a code. It has a codes. If I move back, we go to the first part of the lecture. We say that language, every language, it varies, not only varies from individual to another, but also from one section of society to the other. No, so people of different, and we saw that how the language variations, what are the different factors for different causes behind language variation, and we again basically reviewed what we said in the last lecture, that language has different causes of change, and different classes of society or the professions, moving in different professions, and across the sections of the society, the language changes. And some of the factors we looked at: roles of participants, functions of speech, event, persuasion, and different situations, contexts, they change, they cause a change in the language. Then we moved on to the first part of the major varieties of language, code, and we saw that language is not only one special variety of code, it's a total organization of different linguistic components of language. It's the code of that language. That is basically the code of language, code of that language. When you look at the different linguistic components, they are arranged in particular order. That is basically the code of that language, and it's accepted arbitrarily by people of that community who use that language. When it's accepted, it's the code is accepted by those people, then you can call it a language. We talked about dialect, that it's a regional, temporal, and social variety within a single language. We looked at a dialect, that it's different, it enjoys an entity of its own, but it's not that different that it can be called a language. It enjoys an entity, but it's again it is not that different that it has a clear boundaries, and it attains the level or the importance of a language. And then we saw that it was difficult when we talk about boundaries. We talked about the demarcation between two varieties of language. We saw that it's sometimes difficult to clearly demarcate the two varieties because of the blurred boundaries. The boundary is no more clear when people move across the geographical regions, they move across the classes, and again when the people get education, they move to higher class of education, educated people. That is again different. That is the time when we cannot clearly demarcate between the dialects. We had examples of Dutch and Low German dialects. We talked about Cockney, a class in London, which is now diminishing because people are getting education, and they're also moving to higher class of society. We looked at some definitions of dialects. We looked at sociolect, what are sociolects. Then the next term was isogloss. We said that this is the boundary, this is the linguistic boundary, or the boundary which shows that one variety of English is slowly giving way to the next variety of English, and we see some of the words. We see the words from a different words of different kind, different variety, and we see the way language is spoken, the way words are uttered, the way the pronunciation changes. We see, so this the boundary which shows the change, gradual change, is termed as isogloss, and it's contrasted to isograph, which is of course which is the line which shows the uniformity of language. Registers, we had a detailed talk about the registers. There are varieties of language according to the use in society, varieties of language depending on the professions, different professions in the society. Then again we looked at some definitions of register. We mean a variety, and we said that the variety correlated with performer's social role on a given occasion. And we talked about the different roles of a person in different situations or different places in the society. Like a person may be a sportsman, he can be a religious leader, he can be a father, a son, he can be a husband. So a person has different language for different occasions, and within one class you may find different vocabulary just because of the role a person is playing in different situations. We had examples of that. A professor using language, language, and the wife, of course, she doesn't like. She's protesting against the misuse of register. So if you use one particular register in another situation, again it's considered to be not fit for the occasion, not appropriate for the occasion. So we again looked at Dixon's definition, like there are varieties of language correspond to different situations and different speakers and listeners, or the readers and writers. So this means that language not only is related with the speaker but also with the listener, and also related with the occasion. Now again we had the next thing, which was ideolect. Now ideolect again related with the language of a particular person or a group of people, and when you combine them you form dialects. Different people might have different, one particular individual might have a different kind of words or different kind of pronunciation from the other members of the same class, and that is clearly identifiable. You can clearly distinguish the kind of words, the kind of pronunciation one's individual has, or the group of individuals they have. So when you join them, the idiolects, when you combine them, you make a dialect. Diglossia. Diglossia, when two or more dialects or languages in regular use, you have two different languages in the same society, and people, they give importance to one language and leave the other language as a second language. And they also fix the usage of this language for particular professions, for particular areas, and they play a special function in different areas of the society. Like functions, like you have a language reserved for government circles, language reserved for education, language reserved for law, language reserved for press, radio and TV. So all these different professions, they have different kinds of language. So it is, diglossia is a situation where people relate importance to language, and this prestige dialect is often called the standard dialect. Then we also talked about pidgin. What is pidgin? Pidgin is a contact language, language of trade, when it's used by people from different countries or regions. They come into contact for trade purposes. We had it's mostly used in some parts of Asia. We have example of Chinese pidgin, combination of English being used by the combination of English and Chinese. When they come into contact, a limited purpose of trade, for the limited purpose of trade, the variety that comes into origin, that is, you can call it a Chinese pidgin. When, of course, pidgins, they expand, more people come into contact with each other, it enters more activities of human life, it attains the status of Creole. Creole can be called as extended version of pidgin. When pidgin expands, pidgin moves moves outside the boundary, the limited boundary. You can call it a Creole. Pidgin extends beyond. You can see the one of the last slides we had today. Pidgin extends beyond limited function and enters other activities, and then it has a standardized grammar, vocabulary, sound system. It attains such an importance that it has its own standardized grammar. Some grammar rules come into play. The vocabulary there is a certain vocabulary that is used, and a sound system, of course. So this tries to attain strength, and that strength gives it the status of first language, sometimes increasing as more people start using it as a first language. Pidgin, coming from Pidgin, it attains the status of a Creole. So Creole is a mixed natural language, and here we come to the summary or the conclusion that these are some of the varieties of language. And before that, we also talked about the variation, the causes for the causes behind variation of language, and we discussed in detail what is the code, what is dialect sociolect, what is an isogloss, what is register, what is idiolect, diglossia, Pidgin, Creole. All these are different varieties that you can find in the language change according to the social context. So sociolinguistics, summing up sociolinguistics, we can say that sociolinguistics, the language, is a study of language and society, how language changes according to the social situations. It's the outer aspect of human mind. It's the outer aspect of human activity. That outer aspect of language, I would say, that language changes according to the social situations, and in that very process of change, you can find so many other things like different codes. You can find the different dialects. You can find then you study the boundaries where the languages are changing, where the varieties are changing. You have registers, you have idiolects, Pidgin, Creole. So sociolinguistics is a branch which studies language in detail according to the use in social situations. Now, so far we have talked about, in our last lectures, from lecture 4, 5 and 6, we talked about the inner aspect of language when we talked about the psycholinguistics, and the outer aspect of language when we talked about the sociolinguistics. We have other branches of languages, like we have other branches of linguistics, like we have the applied linguistics, we have the neurolinguistics. We'll be taking up these branches in the coming lectures one by one, and we'll be exploring what they are, what these branches of linguistics are about, what they study, and how how new branches have entered into the domain of the study of linguistics. In the next lecture, we'll be talking about some new branches of linguistics which have gained in importance in the current era. Till then, it's Khuda Hafiz.